What if I told you that behind the lush green canopy of Central Africa's rainforest lies one of the darkest and bloodiest chapters in human history? A story of unimaginable greed, cruelty, and silence. A genocide so vast that it claimed millions of lives, yet so hidden that many today have never heard of it. This is not ancient history. It is the story of the Congo Free State and of King Leopold II of Belgium, a man who turned a nation the size of Western Europe into his personal plantation of death. Before we begin, I want to ask you stay with me through this journey, because this is not just a story of the past. It is a warning for the future. If you believe history like this should never be forgotten, then subscribe, like, share, and follow, because together we can make sure the voices of the Congo are never silenced again. Now, let's begin. In the late 19th century, Africa was being carved apart like a cake. European powers, eager for wealth and resources, scrambled to lay claim to vast territories. At the center of this scramble was King Leopold II of Belgium. Unlike other monarchs, Leopold did not seek colonies for his country. He sought them for himself. To the world, he presented himself as a philanthropist, a visionary king who wished to bring civilization, Christianity, and commerce to the dark heart of Africa. He spoke of uplifting the natives, of ending the slave trade, of progress and humanity. But behind this mask of benevolence lay his true ambition: profit, power, and an empire built on blood. In 1885, at the infamous Berlin Conference, European leaders gathered to formalize their conquest of Africa. Through cunning diplomacy and lies, Leopold convinced them to grant him control over a vast swath of Central Africa, today's Democratic Republic of Congo. But this was not granted to Belgium as a colony. It was given to Leopold personally. He became the sole owner of a land 76 times the size of Belgium. He named it the Congo Free State, a name drenched in irony, for there would be no freedom here. At first, the world believed Leopold's propaganda. He spoke of building schools, of bringing Christianity, of suppressing Arab slave traders. But the reality was far darker. Beneath the Congo's soil lay riches: ivory, copper, and above all, rubber. Rubber was becoming the lifeblood of the Industrial Revolution. Tires, hoses, belts, the world demanded it. And Leopold had found a gold mine. To harvest it, he unleashed a system of forced labor that rivaled the cruelties of the Atlantic slave trade. Villages were ordered to meet impossible quotas of rubber. If they failed, soldiers of the Force Publique, Leopold's private army, descended upon them with brutal efficiency. Men were whipped with the shikot, a whip made of twisted hippopotamus hide that shredded flesh. Women were taken as hostages to force men into the forests. Children were starved. And if quotas were not met, punishment was swift and merciless. Mutilation, death, or both. One of the most infamous practices was the cutting off of hands. To ensure bullets were not wasted, soldiers were ordered to bring back the severed hands of those they killed. But hands became a currency of terror. Villages were raided, hands cut from the living baskets filled with them and presented to superiors. Missionaries and travelers described scenes of horror. Children holding stumps where their hands had been, villages with piles of severed hands, rivers that carried corpses downstream. The death toll mounted. It is estimated that between 10 and 15 million Congolese perished during Leopold's reign. Some died from direct violence, others from famine, disease, or exhaustion. Entire communities vanished. Oral tradition disappeared. Languages faded into silence. The very fabric of society unraveled under the weight of terror. And yet, for years, the world remained silent. Europe looked away, eager to enjoy the profits of rubber and ivory. Newspapers repeated Leopold's lies about civilization and progress. Even when missionaries began to send reports, many dismissed them as exaggerations. After all, could a European monarch truly be capable of such barbarity? But truth has a way of breaking through. In the early 1900s, whistleblowers began to expose the atrocities. Among them was E.D. Morel, a shipping clerk in Liverpool, who noticed that ships returning from the Congo were filled with rubber and ivory, but departing ships carried only guns and chains. Morel realized the horrifying truth. This was not trade, it was plunder. He launched a crusade, publishing pamphlets, organizing campaigns, and rallying support. Another was Roger Casement, an Irish diplomat who traveled through the Congo and documented testimony after testimony from survivors. His report was a bombshell, a meticulous record of forced labor, mutilations, and massacres. The world could no longer deny what was happening. Still, Leopold fought to protect his image. He hired publicists, launched smear campaigns, and even tried to bribe critics. He argued that any abuses were isolated, the work of rogue soldiers. But the evidence piled too high. Photographs taken by missionaries revealed children with severed hands, villages burned to ash, and men scarred beyond recognition. The mask of benevolence was shattered. By 1908, under immense international pressure, Leopold was forced to surrender control of the Congo Free State to the Belgian government. On paper, it marked the end of his personal rule. But for the Congolese, little changed overnight. Though some of the worst practices were curtailed, the system of exploitation continued. Rubber and minerals still flowed out of the Congo. Suffering still lingered within. King Leopold II died in 1909, reviled across Europe. But in Belgium, he was still celebrated by many as a great builder, a man who had left monuments, parks, and palaces. Statues of Leopold dotted the country. Few spoke of the millions of Congolese who had died to fund his grandeur. Silence, once again, became a tool of power. For decades, the memory of the Congo Free State was buried. In schools, it was scarcely taught. In Belgium, it was painted over with myths of civilizing missions. In the Congo, oral histories whispered of the horrors, but trauma had silenced much of the past. Only in recent decades has the world begun to fully acknowledge the scale of this genocide. And make no mistake, it was genocide. Not in the sense of deliberate extermination of a single ethnic group, but in the deliberate destruction of a people's way of life, culture, and existence, carried out with knowledge and intent. A slow, grinding annihilation driven by greed. Today, the scars of the Congo Free State still linger. The Democratic Republic of Congo remains one of the richest lands on Earth in resources, yet one of the poorest in human development. Its history of exploitation laid foundations of instability that persist. Even now, the world continues to take from the Congo cobalt for our smartphones, coltan for our electronics often mined in conditions not so different from Leopold's rubber regime. So what do we learn from this? That silence enables tyranny. That propaganda can mask atrocity. That greed can consume millions of lives. And that history, if forgotten, will repeat itself. The Congo Free State is a chapter many would rather erase, but it must never be forgotten. Every tree in the rainforest, every bend of the Congo River, holds the memory of those who suffered. To tell their story is to honor them. To listen is to ensure they did not die in vain. If this history has moved you, if you believe the world must remember, then I ask you subscribe, like, share, and follow. Not just for me, but for the millions whose voices were silenced. Let us become their voice. Let us spread their story. Let us make sure that the truth of the Congo Free State is heard by the world, now and forever. Because history is not just about the past, it is about the choices we make today.